Collectibles, sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
The #1 Long Island broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh. I had the best time ever.
Hey, listen, Daddy. You're listening to the #1 broadcast, Monte and Pharaoh, Daddy, in Long Island. The best pro wrestling broadcast of all time, I think.
Jimmy, I got to tell you, man, it feels good to be back on YouTube. It was quite disappointing what happened to us, but we bounced back fairly quickly.
Well, what else would we do? We're almost at 5,000 subscribers.
Well, speaking of that, man, we need more members.
Okay.
What do you think we need to do to get the people of those 5,000 subscribers to come on and join the team as a Monte the Pharaoh member?
Nudity is out of the question. Any other ideas?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But what I do have a few ideas.
Well, just like Prel, they should tell two friends, and they could tell two friends, and so on and so on. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Check out all our content.
But that's, you know what? That's why you're the star of the show, because guess what? Members get special content. Even we spoke about it. Pharaoh came to me one day and he goes, man, what's the deal? I can't even watch some of these videos because I'm not a member. And I said, there you go, Pharaoh. You got to be a member because this is what the members get. They get free content
Nice.
that none of the other fans that watch this show get.
That's right.
You get free autographs from some of these wonderful stars that come in, right?
Nice.
All you do is you go to the MNP webpage, or right, our own page, and shoot us an email and say, hey, man, I want a picture of Tommy Rich. I want a picture of whatever. And boy, that's on its way.
We give them their choice.
That's right.
We rock.
We do rock.
And you need to rock too. Join.
Welcome back, Jimmy. How are you, buddy?
Well, I just discovered that the toilet doesn't flush.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
That is not good.
I got no shower head. It just comes out like a kitchen sink faucet, and the toilet doesn't flush. But thank God I didn't leave a patty melt in there before I found out.
Poo time.
Yeah.
Poo time.
Yeah.
Hey, so we were speaking. You said you may not now, but have you decided if you're coming to New York for
No,
Iron Maiden?
I'm nowhere. I'm nowhere with that right now. And on top of it, Maiden's made things even more complicated. They're doing it's going to be 50 years next year that Iron Maiden was born. Do you believe that, Mike? Iron Maiden is 50 years old next year, which is really
that is crazy, dude.
1975 is 1975 is when Maiden started. So they're going to have a Run for Your Lives tour, which may be their very, very last one. So I'm kind of torn right now. Part of me, there's a lot of work to do still with my job and stuff like that. They actually value me. Lo and behold, not like Popeye the Sailor, who I used to work for at ASS Hobby. But they actually realized I have a brain and I could count $10,000 in a clip and sell a lot of products. So, you got that going on. So I'm weighing that in too. And I don't want to burn all my days with Thanksgiving coming so I can go to Stop Shoppy. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure what the hell I'm doing, dude. Not sure. But at least I don't work for Popeye anymore. So Garden Gnome.
Now what is Chop Soppy? What is that?
Sop Shoppy, not Shop PP. All right. What are you, SmackDown's #1 announcer, Funaki? Number one announcer. Hey, that was a funny guy. Funaki was funny.
He was good.
Sock Choppy is some small town that's very woodsy. That's about an hour and change away from where we are in Panama City Beach, where my daughter-in-law's parents live. I love it there. It's great. So I might go there for Thanksgiving again. So there's that.
I got to tell you, the lovely Miss McDaniel has really changed the Pharaoh a little bit here. He's doing things that I never thought he'd do before. It makes me kind of happy.
Yeah, well, I'm not ready yet to go surfing or I have swam with the dolphins. It's better than sleeping with the fishes, I guess. So
How did the dolphins like you? Because I'll give you a little experience. So when I was on my honeymoon with my wife, we swam with the dolphins, but I certainly felt the feeling that the dolphins did not like me, and I'm being honest. Like I could tell that they did not like me.
No, the dolphins were we were out in the Gulf. Zach, and Bart. When Bart was here, he took us pretty far out there, and it was cool. The dolphins had been following us, and there was a bunch of them, and they were massive. I had never seen dolphins that big. These were real, and Zach knows the area. He was like, "Those are some big dolphins, Jimbo," and I was like, "Man, they were huge." We stopped the boat. They followed us for a while. They were actually having fun because they like to follow boats to ride the waves. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
Yeah.
But the jet stream that a boat leaves, the dolphins love to surf. It's almost like surfing to them. They're having a ball. They're following us. We come to a stop. Zach jumped right in, and swam with them. He literally touched them and stuff like that. Then he was like, "Why don't you give it a shot, Jimmy?" And I jumped in, and that's when Zach dropped a great line. He's like, "I forgot to tell you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Dolphins got big dicks." So I was like,
I was about to say,
right.
I thought they had small penises for some reason.
He's like, "Those are full-size dolphins, bro. They got some big-ass mammal dick." I'm like, get me out. I looked at Bart, I'm like, get me out.
They're going to pregnate the Pharaoh with some dolphin.
Yeah, no,
sperm.
they were cool with me. They didn't make me feel too nervous. I mean, you are swimming with massive mammals.
I will tell you this: where there's dolphins, there's usually sharks. Just so you know.
Right.
I am a little surprised that you would jump in those waters. Right.
Well, I learned another thing too. Dolphins kick the shit out of sharks.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a shark, you're actually staying away from them. So
no, but what I'm saying, in actuality, I'm just telling you what I read, and you probably Zach knows more than me. But what I read was, sharks hang around where dolphins hang around. Even though you're right, dolphins will fucking beat the shit out of a fucking shark.
When you get that far out, oh my God, I saw a shark. I can't believe it. What am I, an idiot? I mean, if God forbid I saw one, I asked for it. I'm out there.
Did you ever see that video of that Russian guy? I forget where he was, maybe in Israel or something like that. And he was swimming and that shark took him out. Did you ever see that video? It's pretty rough looking, man.
I haven't. I
get
haven't
a chance, check that out.
But as a 7-year-old, I'm still trying to get over Robert Shaw sliding into that mechanical shark's mouth. So there's that,
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I do, dear lady of Spain.
Man, oh man.
Remember when he's telling that story to the guys in the boat? And
oh my God. Oh my God. You're right. Yeah.
What a great scene that was.
Oh.
I had a little drink about an hour ago, and it's gone right to my head. What a great scene that was.
Jesus Christ! Wow.
Good stuff.
Every time I watch that movie, that scene always gets me. It's like,
to this day, that movie, it's a shame, but I actually saw a comment that made me feel better about the fact that for the most part, since this century started, and I'm sure I've missed some good movies. I'm sure I have. But somebody made the same comment that I have felt for the longest time. Hollywood, after around 1999 or so, started to really suck in a lot of ways.
Well, so I think Jimmy, to be fair,
over and over again.
You run out of stories. I mean, it's I think so. I think everything's been done. It's been done.
Well, I still haven't seen it, but when you get a movie like No Country for Old Men in 2007 or whatever, I mean, obviously, still great movies still exist. I still need to see this movie.
Funny thing, the funny thing though, Jimmy, I was thinking about this too because when you were talking about that last week, so on HBO they have something called The Wise Guy, right? It's a 2-part documentary on Sopranos, right? Okay. And David Chase, who is the writer of Sopranos, right? And he has these so many great scenes in that movie. But he starts revealing where he gets these ideas, and he's basically saying he's stealing them from old movies. And I'm thinking to myself, like, You know what? He's getting all these obscure movies, and he's pulling this stuff out, right? Because they're obscure. So what I'm trying to say, like when you talk about No Country for Old Men, I bet you if I dug deep enough, there's a movie out there that's so obscure from 1937.
Right.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Right. I completely follow what you're saying. Jerry Garcia actually said it in Ripple. It's a hand-me-down. Okay?
Right.
And what I love about it is did you know that Eric Clapton, this is true, Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix both did not like Led Zeppelin. They felt at the time that Led Zeppelin was stealing all the blues stuff from the masters, whether it was Robert Johnson or Willie Dixon, whoever it was. Led Zeppelin was completely robbing from the past. And just, but what they failed to realize is it's okay to have influences. And Jimmy was taking, like Dazed and Confused wasn't even, it's an old song. It goes way back. It's what Jimmy did with it that they failed to recognize. Yeah, sure, you can, and look, everybody's got influences, bottom line. The Beatles in the beginning wanted to be like the Crickets. They liked the Buddy Holly thing. There was a lot of stuff they were influenced by and were copying from and making their own sound. So
I think
it happens,
I think in all genres of whether it be book writing, math,
Hogan
whatever,
with Graham.
people, I don't know if you want to call it stealing. It's just being influenced.
Not.
It's influence.
I think that
right.
And look, if you do it right, yeah. If you do it right, and you apply your own thing that makes it special, yes. Here's the Zeppelin example. You remember a band Kingdom Come when we were kids?
Yeah.
Kingdom Come was a Zeppelin clone, but not a good one. You could see that it was they're just trying to be exactly like Led Zeppelin. Greta Van Fleet is an exquisite example of when you have talent and apply it organically enough that you have your own thing. And that's what I like.
Let me ask you this:
Didn't
Zebra have to use their extraordinary Zeppelin copying skills in order to actually be signed for their original music because they were so good at being Zeppelin?
See, here's the whole thing. Like Zebra is never going to be Kingdom Come because Randy Jackson wrote "Who's Behind the Door."
Right.
Randy Jackson wrote "Tell Me What You Want." Okay?
By the way, I saw him over the summer at the park over here. So
he's amazing. He's a great musician. And you know something, too? To his credit, and Greta Van Fleet can't even say this because when the kid from Greta Van Fleet starts to do his Zeppelin thing, he really sounds exactly like him. But the difference is, though, when Randy, like, for example, at the beginning of Tell Me What You Want, when he's just in his regular voice, I've been wasting my time. You know what I mean? That doesn't sound like Robert Plant. It sounds like the guy from Zebra. You know what I'm saying? Or we sailed away. Hey, doesn't sound like Robert Plant. It's when he goes into the top end that he's got the Robert Plant manner.
But I guess my point to you though is this: if it wasn't for their being influenced by Zeppelin, right? Because they were a Zeppelin cover band. They were a Zeppelin cover band for a very long time.
So was Hart.
I get it, but I don't think Zebra ever gets signed if they weren't so great at copying Zeppelin. Is what I'm trying. Now, don't get me wrong; those songs you just named are great songs. If anyone doesn't know who Zebra is, Zebra never, in my opinion, ever really made it. I know when I was in the Army in Texas or Louisiana. In Texas, they were huge in Houston, and I used to laugh because, Jimmy, you turned me on to Zebra. I remember you bought the album.
Zebra was huge on Long Island.
Yeah, they were a Long Island band, right? So, so you turned me on to them, and that first album is actually very good.
It's a great album.
But my whole point is, I think everybody's influenced by something.
They are. Led Zeppelin influenced a lot of bands. Look, if you don't have what they used to call the unholy trinity of the British three great hard rock / borderline metal, and in Black Sabbath's case, the beginning of metal, it was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Led Zeppelin. Not in that order, obviously, because if you're putting it into who did what, then it's probably Led Zeppelin as far as sales, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple in that order. But the bottom line is without those three, you probably don't wind up eventually getting Maiden. You probably don't wind up eventually getting Priest. You don't wind up it was the next evolutionary step. So Zeppelin was influenced by the Blues Masters, put a heavier edge on it, and in turn influenced what eventually became hard rock / heavy metal. It's all a hand-me-down, like Jerry Garcia said. You have your influences, you put your own thumbprint on it, hopefully, not like Kingdom Come. You put your own thumbprint on it, and then you influence the next generation. It's a hand-me-down. Period.
Mm. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
before we get into the eras of wrestling, we gotta have a pretty decent talk about the Vince McMahon docu-series.
Okay, which I haven't seen, by the way, but
Which is listen, again, I'll say it. You're a pretty
I want to see
good
it.
historian on Vince McMahon as well as
Yeah.
I am, right?
Sure, we lived
So
through
it's
it. Yeah.
for any wrestling fan, it's not something that you don't already know. There's not a whole bunch of like you know, nuggets or,
Right. Revelations.
hidden gems that
Right.
like, oh, wait a minute, like Dark Side of the Ring, I was like, they're really losing their edge, right, for a very long time. And then
Mm-hmm.
this year they kind of recovered. And, Black Saturday, like
Mm-hmm.
that had me in awe because I
Mm-hmm.
did not know really what happened behind Black Saturday. So when they explained, I was blown out of my mind. I was like, holy cow, that's unbelievable.
Right.
With the Vince
Right.
thing, you kind of know everything that went on. I mean, we just did a show on him a couple of weeks ago. And, it pretty much opens up with him growing up and his problems. He had an abusive stepfather. His
Right.
father, Vince Sr., disappeared on him. And they mention it later on in the series, but he also had made accusations that I guess his mother had sexually abused him also at some point.
Really
Um,
now?
yeah, so I'm kind of jumping
Yeah,
back and forth a
that's
little
a bit
bit.
of a revelation. I've never heard that one. Okay.
But
What
I'm
did you
jumping
think when
back
you
and
heard
forth.
that?
I expected it. I think we
Dude,
discussed it.
that's
I remember a couple of shows
well, I
ago,
don't
I said I really felt that Vince didn't like women because of his mother.
right. Yeah, but I didn't. This is the first I'm hearing that she might have taken liberties with
I
the
think
kid.
in '96 he did an article and he kind of was pretty revealing. He doesn't
Wow.
accuse her. He kind of like dances around it, right? Dances around the fire a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. All right.
So if anyone ever caught the Schwarzenegger documentary, right? If you watch that, dude, you're blown out of your mind. Schwarzenegger is a man's man. Like no
Mm-hmm.
excuses, no matter how tough life is, you better get your shit together. And you
Mm-hmm.
believe it because that's what Schwarzenegger was. This is a guy who came to the
Right.
country, couldn't speak English, and took over the world, right?
Right.
So you're watching Vince, and I just want to open up with this: is that we talked about it last show, but it was very troublesome to me, Jimmy, that this documentary is pretty much just first you realize that, oh my God, wrestling's had a lot of problems in the WWE, like a lot of very
Mm-hmm.
high profile problems from
Yeah.
Jimmy Snuka to fucking Chris Benoit to Owen Hart. I mean,
Right.
listen, dude, talk about gold. And I'll ask you, they asked him about Owen Hart and why he continued on with the show. And he said
Right.
this. He said the fans didn't see him die because it was black. They only
The
saw him
fans
in the
at
ring.
home. Fans in the ring.
No,
The fans in the ring
the fan.
saw it.
Right, exactly.
You ain't hiding it from them.
Right. So
Right.
he said, and you know what? They're here to do a show.
Yeah.
And then they bring Bret, and he goes, if Shane had fallen off. See, so Bret kind of explains himself. Bret is Bret, Jimmy, right? Bret is
Mm-hmm.
always complaining about something. But in this point, he said he thought this is how fucking arrogant Bret Hart is. He thought that they fucked with Owen and they did this to Owen to get back at him. And then when he found out that it had nothing to do with it.
Not
But
murder.
I'm just telling you his thoughts. This is his thoughts.
Oh, come
and he
on.
says it. And he goes, once he found out,
Right.
he was like, okay, all's forgiven. It wasn't against me. Bret is a weird dude, Jimmy.
Well, it doesn't make him. Look, it doesn't make him weird to think that. To have that cross his mind. All right, let's try to for a second put yourself in Bret Hart's position. He's just found out that the company that he left, that his brother, who he dearly loves, has stayed, has died falling from a rafter. I'm not surprised that one of the fleeting thoughts that would come to his mind is fucking Vince killed him. I could see him thinking that. But then really thinking it and sharing it with the public? No, that wouldn't be something I would do. Would it be something I might think about? Yeah, come on, be real. I'm sure some dark shit went through his mind. And I'm sure he was angry as fuck. But I'll tell you what, ironically, over the years, And look, it's not my position to say who should hold a grudge at this level after all these years or what, but Martha is way more fuck you than Bret
Well,
is at this point.
you make a
You
really
know,
good point, Jimmy, right? We didn't live it, so we don't know what the feelings are or how
right,
we would feel. We speak
right,
about, Tom Cole, Lee Cole often, right? About
yeah,
that issue. We don't know how Lee really feels, meaning that
no,
we didn't lose our brother, right?
right,
So,
right. And you know something? You said something quickly earlier that I have to talk about here. Bret saying if it had been Shane that had fallen that night and died, I bet you he wanted to continue the show. I think Bret's right.
you
Does
do,
that
huh?
mean that I think Vince would have stopped the show if his son
Can,
was
can I
lying there
can I tell
dead?
you what Vince said?
What is he going to do it? He would have done it anyway.
He
The
said
show must go on. Steps over Shane. I
that's
mean,
exactly what he said. He said
why
if
am I
my
not
son
surprised?
he
Why am I
said if
not
my
surprised?
son had fallen,
That's
or if
2020
I had
hindsight, by the way,
fallen,
there, Vince.
life
Yeah.
moves on. Life
Well,
moves on.
that's obviously how Vince looks at it. By the way, I don't think that that's the normal way to look at shit. I don't. If my son fell from the rafters and I'm just like, well, the show must go on, something's wrong with me.
Well,
All
I'm going to
right,
explain to you what
something's wrong with me.
Paul Heyman.
That's
Now,
bullshit. Yeah.
Paul Heyman games the documentary up a little bit, but what he
Mm-hmm.
did say, and it was very telling.
Yeah.
He said Vince has one love. It's not
Yeah.
Linda. It's
No.
not
It's
Stephanie.
it's
It's not Shane.
no. It's
It's
a product.
wrestling. It's
Yeah,
the
I know.
WWE.
I
And you
know.
know what?
I
Look,
know.
listen.
You're right.
You know how you
I
said
get
it's
it.
not normal thinking? Go back to Ric Flair's documentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ric
Mm-hmm.
Flair's documentary.
Right.
Ric Flair, he loved his kids, he loved his wife, but he loved being
Mm-hmm.
Ric Flair a hell of a
He
lot
loved.
more.
He loved. Honestly, if I have to have a, who's the better family man? Sorry, Rick. Vince wins.
Well, my point is, I think way
Oh
back when we
man, what does
discussed
that say? Yeah.
that Ric Flair documentary, we said, okay, that's kind
Yeah.
of fucked up. It's kind of abnormal. But you know what, dude? I guess, and I
No,
think
it's
we
not.
had discussed
It's
this. We
kind of
said,
normal.
if you really
You
want
know.
something that bad,
Yeah.
it is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. You know what I mean?
Right.
You
Right.
said it.
Look.
You said, hold on. You said that they already took everything from Vince. Now that he doesn't
Yeah.
have that anymore, he's going to die. And I didn't really believe that when you said it. I thought to myself, no,
Oh.
Vince is a
Uh,
fighter. But after a while,
yeah.
and I'm not done yet, you're 100% right. They took his soul. They took his soul
Yeah.
from him. In the
They did.
end, whatever like he talks, go ahead. I want you to say what you're going to say, but
No, this is
talk about
important.
the
Hit it.
people that hated this guy, Mushnick. You know
Yeah.
Mushnick. Mushnick
Sure.
went
Piece of
every
shit.
avenue. And you know
Yeah.
what he called? He called Vince. He called
Yeah.
Vince just trash. It's
No.
like,
No.
why?
No.
Why?
Vince is no more. Listen, I don't approve. It depends on the topic. I don't approve fully of what I'm trying to become comes first, but I would probably myself, as long as it doesn't jump over certain moral lines, I'd probably do the same goddamn thing. Not to the extremes that I've seen Ric Flair do. Fuck that. No way. But let me put it this way. John Lennon had a choice to make in 1964 when the Beatles became bigger than anything we could probably even realize. Do you realize that before the day of the internet, 73 million people watched the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan? Can you imagine today how to rate that number? What would that number be today? 73 million. Now, John's married at the time, to Cynthia, and he's about to undergo Beatlemania. The first human beings who could probably, outside of Elvis, not even get out of a car without being torn to pieces. I mean, what's his decision going to be? Is it going to be, should I go home to baby Julian and Cynthia, or should I become a Beatle? I already am a Beatle. Wow, this is overwhelming. Holy crap, I like this. There's no way that John Lennon is picking Cynthia and Julian. There's just no way. And I hate to say it, I myself probably would have been the same way. You do not slave in bars and shitholes and go to Germany and take pills for 8 hours a day to fucking do 2 8-hour sets. What are you talking about? To finally make it and then go, well, I guess I should just go back home now. That's not happening. That's why John Lennon became what he became. I don't blame him any more than I blame Vince. And again, I believe, now you tell me this, in the documentary, did they talk about what we've heard so many times, that when Owen fell, Vince called everybody together in the few moments he had to and said, do we want to do this? And everybody said we should go on because Vince himself was saying Owen would want us to go on. Didn't they
No,
all
they
say,
don't. They don't.
yeah,
They don't
well, I mean,
cover
what's the
that. They don't
story?
cover that. So the
it's,
story, if you
they
remember,
should.
we had D'Lo on. We spoke, right?
Yeah.
I think we had the
Mhm.
Godwins on. We might have spoken with the
Yeah.
Godwins about that, right? The
Yeah.
reality of it is, Vince said, "Show goes on," and they
Right.
were talking about the first ones up with Jeff Jarrett and Deborah, and Jeff was very close to him, and they
Oh, he
had to
was
do
crushed.
this. They had to do this interview. Listen,
He was
man,
crushed.
D'Lo said it the right way. Unless you're
Mhm.
in that situation,
Yeah.
you don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the one thing that, again, I'm going to go back to my pro Vince McMahon. Okay. I'm going to start here with Vince McMahon is Mike Monty's idol. Like, I idolize Vince McMahon.
Don't
Always
say idol.
have.
You're gonna tick off the preacher from Nazareth. Yeah, he's
Well,
somebody
you
to
know,
look up
you know
to.
what I mean. You know what I mean.
I got you.
He's
not an idol.
He's the most important figure to me outside my own family, right?
More than Deion Sanders in the Falcons jersey.
Absolutely, by far, by far.
I had to. Go ahead.
Um,
I got you. I know
so
what he means to you. I
the
know.
one thing that Vince McMahon has always been, right? He's always
Yeah.
taken the brunt of every problem. The one thing
Yeah.
they talk about on the documentary, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but he goes, he
He's
never sells.
resilient, Mike. He's
Never
so
sells,
resilient.
Jimmy. Never lets the enemy see his weaknesses ever.
He's so resilient. It's his greatest feature is his resilience.
So
quite honestly.
you have
Tough.
all these Monday morning
Yeah.
quarterbacks talking about what should have been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vince McMahon is a captain. He makes decisions in wartime.
Totally agree.
D'Lo
Yeah.
got it. When we interviewed, D'Lo got it. If you guys could see that
Mhm.
interview, D'Lo said, you're not in that. He made the decision that he made.
Right. Mike,
And then
if
you
it was
got-
me there that day, I would have given 1,000%. I would have gone out there and killed it for the crowd. I would have done it. I would have absolutely gone on with the show. I'm a showman. I would have done the same thing. If that's what the boss wants, this is an effing horrible moment. But you know what? Owen would want me to do good. I'm going out there. I'm doing this for him. That's what I would have done. And I was never mad that he did this. I was never mad that he went on with the show. I never took it that side of the coin. I saw it as Vince weighed the good with the bad, already knew we were dealing with bad, and said, Owen would have wanted to do this. Let's go. And I would have been out there. I would have. And I probably would have been able to hold my shit together too. But I would have gone out there one way or the other. I back him to this day on that decision. It wasn't an easy decision. Like you said, a captain's got to make decisions. So I always put him on it. It is what it is.
So obviously that's a huge scar on the WWE, regardless whose fault
Of
it's
course.
Another one
Sure.
they brought up was like Snuka Argentina. They don't cover it too much. Then Argentina.
That one's too hazy.
Yeah,
that one's too hazy.
Then comes the steroid trial, right? And Dr. Savorian is his name. Dr. Savorian, I think his name was.
Jack Savorkian, or whatever the hell his name was. With the
Right,
lab coat. Yeah, go ahead.
So
George Savorkian.
basically,
Wow.
whatever.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Doctor, whatever.
Frankenroid.
Dr. WWE.
Dr. Frankenroid. Gotcha.
So they go through, we know what happened with the steroid trial. And they basically said, look, this is what Mushnick said. He goes, okay, he might not have been guilty of making them use it or selling them, but he knew he was influencing them to take the stuff. And this is what I thought. And I got to share this too. Again, I don't want to make this about Busted Open. I listened to it at work, not like intently. I just like shit in the background. So it's either I put music on and Busted Open. It depends on what's going on, right? So I wanted to hear their take on the documentary because I knew LaGreca had taken the day off. And he just trashed McMahon and called him a bad person and everything else. And he brought up the steroid trial and he said, look, he was running the show. He knew those guys were taking steroids. He's guilty. No, he's not. Okay. Listen, here's the reality of it. And this is where these stupid, like LaGreca, why he's such a fucking fraud. Okay. You grew up on wrestling. Why? Did you grow up? Let me ask you something, Jimmy.
Yeah.
10-year-old Jimmy Farrow is at home. He puts on his TV And here comes Wrestling All-Stars on Channel 9. And instead of Bob Backlund rolling up Stan Hansen or whoever he was rolling up on the intro, it's Jack Perry rolling up Darby Allin. Does Jimmy Farrow watch this wrestling show?
No, because even at 10, Jimmy realizes he could kick their ass.
Thank you. And this is not a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
Why do we like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because he's bigger than life. Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, he's bigger than life. Okay?
Right. Andre. How about Andre? Forget all the muscles. How about just the size? How about Andre? How about
some people? Why don't they call that a freak show? Why isn't it Vince McMahon's fault that he didn't force Andre to have his thyroid removed?
Yeah, and one of the best parts about this all is the same hypocrites who want Vince McMahon to answer for every steroid ever taken in this business. Well, then how come we didn't call in all the other promoters from the 1980s? What, there were no steroid heads in the NWA? Huh? Wait, let me get closer. What, there were no steroid heads in the AWA, Vern? Huh? What? You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, it's all Vince. No, it's not all Vince. Get the fuck out of here.
But it gets better than that, Jimmy. Think about it this way, right?
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to make this about Bully Ray or Tommy Dreamer, right? So you're blaming Vince, but you're blaming Vince for this steroid stuff. Meanwhile, your two co-hosts were hopped up on juice for 12 years and 15 years, right? Why don't, if you're a real reporter, okay, and a real journalist, and I'm not saying we are, but we're a lot more of a journalist than these fucking guys, and I'm being honest. Why wouldn't you say to them? Well, why wouldn't you say to them? They're your co-host and say, "Hey, man, you guys ever hit the juice?"
Right.
How do you feel about that? Do you blame your promoters because you decided to take the juice? Why don't you be a real journalist? Like, why don't you ask that question? That's my question.
They're not going to, because number one, they're not real journalists. They're wrestlers role-playing as announcers. Whether they're on a radio show or whether they're on a television show, they are role-playing. You're being worked, all right? So for you to think that all of a sudden Bubba's going to step out of character, which he is when he's on the radio. I love how people think, well, that's the real Bubba. Who the fuck knows who the real Bubba is? He's working everybody 24/7. Cut the shit. I don't know who the fuck the real Bubba is. I'd rather not find out either. You know what I mean? But if he's anything like he supposedly is, he's kind of surly and big and mean. I could do without that. I'd rather get high. You know what I'm saying? So as far as that goes, look, these guys are in character. He's not a true journalist, Mike. You want true journalism.
But you're missing my point. If you're LaGreca and you're gonna if you're gonna make a statement that you're watching a documentary and boy, this guy's a bad man, right? He's bad, he's evil, he's bad, right? I get it. Then why wouldn't you go to the guys that worked for him and said, "Hey, man, so let me ask you this. They brought all these guys in. Ultimate Warrior, Warlord, they all had Hulk Hogan, they all asked him, did he make you take steroids? They all said, no, we did them on our own. But you're blaming Vince because he made them feel like they had to take it. You've got two premier, like one premier guy and one guy that dries paint. You got two guys, right, that you could say, were you forced into did you feel like you had to take steroids? And I hate using the word steroids because steroids is how about enhancement drugs or human growth hormones? Like, that's how their out is, right? If you use steroids, I never took steroids because you know what? I'm injecting human growth hormones, right? So it's like, and by the way, it's not proven that any of this shit's bad for you, by the way. So just make that clear, too.
Well, you know what? I want to know, like, after the steroid trials and all that other shit, where was Bubba Ray to walk up to Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit and say, yo, man, I think you might take it easy on juicing. You know what I mean? Where was he for that? You know what I'm getting at? I mean,
it's a really good point, Jimmy. That's a really good point.
The steroid trial came and went, and within 10 years later, you got Eddie Guerrero with bicycle pump arms and Chris Benoit with a bicycle pump brain. So what was really, I suppose Vince made them do it? No. Each person has got freedom of will, freedom of choice. You want to take shit? Take shit. Vince wasn't standing there like, you better take shit. You look like a baked potato.
Well,
Stupidest thing I've ever heard
no,
of.
but the
Stop.
thing that is said though, Jimmy, is that they knew in order they saw the only guys being promoted were the big monsters, which could be the
Right.
case. I get that.
Right.
I get that.
Okay.
But it's
Okay.
still your choice
Right.
to do it or
Right.
not do it.
Of course it is. It is. You know, look, I don't consider Vince McMahon like a heroin or a meth dealer. The whole thing was preposterous, and it was a hate campaign, and they singled him out. You should have rounded up every goddamn promoter from the last 15 years. If you really want to get to the bottom of it, that's what they bring them all in. They're all responsible for this. I saw plenty of bloated biceps on any program I tuned into, and it didn't always have to be WWF.
Listen, you just said it, right? You're like, let's not have false worship, things like that.
Yeah.
What right do people have to judge people off a documentary? And by the way, the documentary is not really that bad. It just shows the side of Vince McMahon. But, it just shows people's hatred, right? It's like if you watch a Schwarzenegger documentary, okay, Schwarzenegger is the same type of personality McMahon is. And let's not forget, Arnold cheated on his wife and impregnated and had another child and blah, 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 blah. And here's the other thing, too. If you're Dave LaGreca, you've been married, this is like 3 or 4 times, right? 4 times. Like, wouldn't you think that? But I'm being serious here, Jimmy. Wouldn't you think maybe you've got a problem? Maybe you got a problem?
Well, I mean, the numbers say that the higher it goes, it's like, I can only perform this trick once, becomes silly. So I get it.
That's a great comment, right? But that's my whole point. It's like, who's throwing rocks? Like, it's like, dude, if you're married 4 times, maybe you shouldn't get married again, right? Maybe you're not the marrying type.
Well, it really depends, but yeah, law of averages says, okay, maybe somebody's not too good at this. I could see why you would think that,
Oh, well, let me ask you this. Hold on, I gotta ask this, Jimmy. Why okay, you're married. Why do people usually divorce? What reasons?
Well, everybody's circumstances are different, but I guess the face and the person you fell in love with at the beginning is not that person at the end.
That's one, right? Adultery would be 2, right? But no, adultery would be 2.
Well, doesn't that play into the person who showed me the face I saw in the beginning?
Again, you're broad stroking it on me, but my point is you just fall out. You fall out of love with someone. That's 1. 2, financials are always a problem with divorce. Adultery is the next one too, right? So again, you're gonna point fingers. But my point is, you're going to point fingers at Vince McMahon because he has some sort of sexual desires for all sorts of women. But meanwhile, who knows why you've been divorced 3 or 4 times? Again, I'm not laying judgment on a dude. All I'm saying is you shouldn't be throwing rocks at someone when you have that lifestyle yourself. That's all I'm saying to you.
Well, McMahon and Hogan, to me, became the face of all the hatred the same way A-Rod became the face of the steroid list. And it's funny how some people are heroes and get away with everything. There are so many wrestlers that are beloved that took roids. That's all there is to it. And somehow the fans don't go after them. Oh, Hogan with his roids and McMahon with his roids. And what about all those other guys? Oh, I like them. And it's the same thing with A-Rod. He gets to be the punching bag for roids when you got David Ortiz on that list. Everybody loves David Ortiz. Oh, he can do no wrong. So, I mean, I don't know why this happens, but every problem or every bad situation needs a face, a scapegoat, somebody we can lay it on. And if you look biblically, it kind of goes back a long way now, doesn't it, to find a scapegoat?
If wrestling wasn't as popular as it is right now, this moment, this time, okay, everything comes around, right? It's always full circle, right? So you remember in the 80s, right, when it was nothing, no one paid attention to it. It was the same juice heads, blah, 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 blah. Then it becomes famous, then it's attention. Guess what? Since it's so popular, if I start writing bad articles about it, more people are going to read my articles and more money I'm going to make. And, I'm Dave Meltzer and I'm going to write about it more and now I'm going to make money. And then it starts to die. And, no one's looking at pickleball. Like no one's checking out pickleball, right?
No, I could care less about.
They're not checking out if the top pickleball players are having sex with women and doing drugs. because
It's
it
not
doesn't
fashionable.
matter.
Nobody gives a shit. Right, exactly. Well, the bigger you get, the more people pay attention to you. I mean, imagine John Lennon's surprise when he said, "We're more popular than Jesus." Oh,
Does this
shit.
Netflix
Oh,
series
shit.
does this
You know?
does this Netflix series even come out if the WWE is not as popular as it is right now?
No, of course not. No. No, the WWE's on top of everything right now. They're huge.
You know where it would be? It would be shelved along with 350 Days in a shelf of shit people don't watch. And
Was
I'm
that
being
a film?
serious.
Was that a movie?
But my point, but I'm being serious, right? I know we pick
No, I
on
don't.
it, right? But
Yeah, I know. I got you.
that's where it would be shelved
Right,
because no
right,
one would think about it. No one cares, right? It
right,
doesn't matter.
right. Yeah,
It's not
dude,
popular.
I'll hammer it home. Nobody remembers Hanoi Rocks. You know why? Because even though Vince Neil killed him in the car crash, they weren't big, so nobody cares. A guy lived and died thanks to Vince Neil's recklessness, and nobody,
And nobody cares. And then
it just goes by the board.
Vince Neil could go on Howard Stern and talk about how
Right,
all the prison
right.
guards were such big fans
Yeah,
of him. They would shuffle
yeah.
in the girls and they would
Uh-huh.
put curtains over
Yeah.
the jail cell.
There you
Meanwhile,
go.
again, this
There
guy
you-
had
yeah,
no
the guy's
remorse.
dead.
No
Right.
remorse. No
None.
remorse.
None
Don't even get
whatsoever.
me going on that, dude.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, really?
Well, there it is. Because basically, what you said about the 350 weeks or whatever it was is Hanoi Rocks. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, and that's just
So
the way it works. When you're big, everybody cares. When you're
they
little,
bring up
nobody
they
cares.
bring up the Rita Charlton thing, right? The referee, the female referee.
Yeah.
And in the early 80s, I guess she was on Geraldo, and that's where she said
Oh,
that
great.
Vince basically raped her, and then Vince
Right.
sued Geraldo and Charlton, later on dropped charges, right?
Yeah. Right.
Then
right.
all these years later, with the Janelle Grant coming in, Vince settles
Mhm.
suit with Rita Charlton all these
Mhm.
years later.
Mhm.
But she says something pretty telling in the video. She says that she had to if she wanted $1 million contract. So the question I have for you, I think Benny Scala actually brought it up to me too. What referee in wrestling is making $1 million?
No, back then, or you what? No, what doesn't seem realistic at all.
So if someone's going to lie
At
about
all.
that, wouldn't they lie
At
about the
all.
whole thing?
Doesn't.
And by the
doesn't
way,
seem
Vince
realistic at all.
in the docuseries says it was
Not even close.
consensual sex. He says it was consensual sex.
Yeah, that $1 million bullshit. That's bullshit. Vince is no. That's to me that reeks of bullshit. I mean, nobody was making that kind of money, much less referees. No, I'm not buying that for 1 second. Not 1 second. Can't. Doesn't make any sense to me. So that's interesting. It seems to be like Vince got to tell his side, which I've been waiting to waiting to hear. I'm going to have to see this for myself.
Jimmy, the thing about Vince, he's very matter of fact about everything. He seems
Seems to
very
be.
honest and very matter of fact about the situations. Just like, yep, this is what happened. This is what I
He's
believe.
very blunt.
This is how I live.
Yeah.
He says in part of the video, he says he never looks back. I never look back because you can't change the past.
Well, I don't know what he means by he never looks back. I know that he's been forced to look back when he's making some of his on-the-fly business decisions with the company. I'm sure he's looked back, but maybe he looks at the steroid trial or whatever other bad winds blow his way. He doesn't ponder. He doesn't dwell on. And you know what? That would be consistent with Vince because Vince couldn't afford to dwell on problems. Like we all get our woe is me stuff. But in the game that Vince McMahon has played all these years, you can't afford that. You can't afford to, do the woe is me or well, maybe I should have done this or that. Vince wouldn't have been such a trailblazer if he had always been second guessing himself or taking it too personally every time somebody says something about him. It's a much smaller microscope. And Mike, there's been plenty of shit said about you and me. And you know what? Whatever. You gotta fucking do what you gotta do. I don't give. I've learned to not give two fucks about that stuff. You try to at least. And I think that's what Vince was saying. I don't look back, especially on the bad shit. How can I look forward if I'm too busy looking at my rearview mirror all the time?
Our friend Tony Atlas was on the docuseries. I actually spoke to him yesterday. He called me. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm watching you on the docuseries." He goes, "Oh, which one is that?" I'm like, "It's the McMahon Netflix." We're talking yesterday, right? By the way, he's going to come and do an interview with us. he has a lot he wants to talk about, but he says to me, I don't even remember what I said. And you know what he says though, which was very interesting. Number one, they talk about the Jesse Ventura union deal, and
Yeah.
right, and they asked Tony, and Tony's like, wrestlers only care about themselves. And there's some point Tony said that the wrestlers, they treated women like crap. They used them and abused them, and they were like a toy.
I believe it.
Tony was very
I believe it.
honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they were groupies. That's all there is to it. The ring rats were just a fancy word for groupies. And I'm sure wrestlers did whatever they wanted with them. I mean, I recently heard something about Don Henley. You know, I know it's not wrestling, but it's showmanship. That Don Henley did something that blew my mind. He would get girls into his room. He'd line up like 7 of them, have them undressed, all bent over, and he would sit on a chair and do coke, then get up and have sex with one of them, sit back down, keep them all in the same position, just stay bent over. Do you believe this crap, by the way? Okay.
I do.
And
You're not shocking me. You're not shocking me.
Do another line, walk up to the next one. I mean, what the? You know, welcome to the Hotel California. No wonder you never want to leave. You know what I'm saying? It's just
I think it when
crazy.
people become that powerful and then people allow them to things to be done to them.
Yeah.
Listen, man, you know what? This type of shit's been going on forever and ever. But you know, it's funny about wrestling. It's so real.
Mhm.
Everybody's got a price. You and me, Jimmy, both have a price.
Mm.
We do. We do.
Mm.
Whether people want to admit it or not, we all have a price. Now, again, there may be certain things that we don't have a price for, which is kind of contradictory to what I'm saying. I get that, right? But it's like, you know, look, I'm not going to murder someone for money, right? I mean, I wouldn't do that, right? I'm not going to hurt someone for money. That's not my gig. But there might be other stuff I'd do for money. I don't know.
Oh, you just made me self-examine myself. I'm thinking to myself, who am I murdering? How much?
That's great. That's great. That's great.
Well, it depends on who I'm murdering. If I'm taking out a terrorist that I think is really bad for the globe, you know, the world situation, sure, I'll take him out. That's fine. That works. You know, I would have taken out Hitler back in the day. You know, if I got a price. Hell, I might have done it for free.
I mean, part of the thing was at the end, I haven't seen it yet, but I heard they ask a bunch of wrestlers what's Vince McMahon's legacy, and all of them can't answer at all. From what I'll watch it. I'll watch it after we're off tonight because I'll finish up tonight because I'm interested. But I thought to myself, like, this whole thing has destroyed this guy's legacy. It really has.
I don't. The previous half century or so. No, I don't think that way. I just don't, Mike. I can't really get any deeper into it other than I don't think so. You know, he hasn't killed anybody and he hasn't raped anybody and he's not convicted in a court of law. And if everybody wants to jump up and down that hates him, they would have hated him before this came out and they'll hate him after. I can't control that shit. I could care less. I think that Vince McMahon is the most important promoter in the history of this business that changed so many different things. We could be here for hours talking about all the different things he did.
You know, Jimmy, but I don't think he's just the greatest promoter in wrestling. He may be the greatest promoter of all time, no matter what it is.
You can argue that he is. You can argue that he is. You know, I mean, if you look in music, you have I consider Peter Grant, the manager of Led Zeppelin, one of the greatest promoters of all time and businessmen. Boy, did he protect Led Zeppelin, you know. But Vince McMahon, as far as showmanship on the scale that he's done it on, who the hell is his peer?
Well,
I don't think he's got
How about talk about the things that he's done? We've mentioned it before. Scott Hall, it's been on the show. Over $250,000 in rehab for this guy. Sonny. I haven't seen the part yet, but Scala was telling me that that he paid for oh my God. You know what I'm talking
about. Look, 12
about.
rehabs alone from Scott Hall. Come on. 12 times you're going to pay for the guy to get
but forget about the rehab. You know, Pat Patterson, who was actually found not guilty on the Ring Boy scandal, right? Okay.
Right.
What's his name? Who's his right hand man, dude? I'm sorry, it gets getting late. I'm getting tired. Vince's right hand man. Brother Love.
Oh, Pritchard,
thank you. So Pritchard, in the video, they start talking about the Ring Boy scandal. He says straight up, Pat Patterson was innocent. The other two, no comment. That's his exact words on this docuseries. Okay?
Right.
Patterson got fired, and when I think Pritchard asked McMahon why he fired Patterson, he goes, because it's too much heat. But he's innocent. It's too much heat. But then he brought Patterson back and paid him well because he was right. Pritchard's wife had a rare form of cancer. Vince spent a lot of money helping that lady.
You know, you're never going to hear about that stuff. You know, you
hear about it in the docuseries, though, right?
Yeah, but are people going to cover it and be like Vince McMahon?
No, it doesn't matter, right? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
I mean, come on. We were laughing when Karen and I got married, and you put the video on YouTube, and then you put on a clip. Chris Benoit, farts in the bathroom. Benoit! 10,000 fucking views. I just got married to Karen fucking McDaniel. And it's like, oh, that's nice. Send flowers. You know, it's good news. People aren't interested in good news. They don't give a shit. You know, and then we wonder why we're such a corrosive society. Well, look in the mirror. Nobody wants good news, you know?
We got a comment here. It's from Jislamic State.
Oh,
Jislamic. Okay. It's a Jislamic State.
And you're reading this for what reason? Go ahead.
Why was Dave Meltzer so heavily featured in the documentary? He's irrelevant weirdo who's never had a job in the wrestling industry.
He's got a point, Jislamic State. Yeah, well, you know.
Meltzer is very heavily in this video. Yes.
Right. I've never taken Meltzer's opinion very highly. I really don't care what Meltzer has to say.
But who's smarter than Meltzer? He made a living on reporting pro wrestling, dude.
Yeah, right. I didn't say it wasn't.
Who, by the way, if you talk about taking the juice, you know that guy took the juice.
Well, I mean, Meltzer's taking the juice, and I think our president Phil's in trouble. I mean, what's going on here? Is he getting it from? It's possible. I don't know. Meltzer looks like.
Let me ask you this.
Somebody wrote, "There's no way Meltzer is juicing." I was like, I don't know, man.
Who wrote that?
Yeah. I saw a comment somewhere. I was looking, and it was a picture of Meltzer, and I was like, he's not juicing. What the fuck?
That's insanity. He might not be juicing now, but he was juicing back then with his stupid ass mullet. Let me ask you this, just purely speculation. If I had to ask you, do you think that there was inappropriate behavior from Vince McMahon with Rita Charlton?
What do I think? What
do you think?
Vince says everything was consensual, and she says that he was going to give her $1 million if she didn't. Well, Vince just sounds more realistic than the other one. You know, you're not giving $1 million to a referee in 19 whatever. No, that's not happening. So basically, sounds like a little gold digging, perhaps. I don't know.
So right. I'm at a point now where they talk about Sable, and Sable was so hot at that point. They were saying every time she came on Raw, the views went up by like 500,000 people, whatever. Right. And then she leaves and sues the WWE for sexual harassment, illegal, blah, blah, blah. But then when I stopped watching, because I stopped watching for quite a long time, I got to be honest with you, she came back. She came back. And Vince really didn't remember. He didn't even remember she sued them, right? He did. That's what he says in the docuseries. But so here's my question. So here's a woman who sues the WWE, right? And does all this stuff, and then comes back and does vignettes with Vince, sexual vignettes with Vince.
Right.
When does it stop, Jimmy?
It doesn't. People like to just play games, I mean, for Sable to have an issue with the sexual... Look, if it wasn't for her looks and her sexuality, she couldn't wrestle, she couldn't talk. She looked good. She looked real good. And everybody jumped on that. The ratings went up for that whenever she was on, because about 500,000 18 to 25-year-olds were probably spanking the monkey watching her, quite honestly.
Well, that's without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So I mean, I really laugh when I see, obviously... because we live in this society, when I see women complain about, oh, I was used sexually, this, that, and the other thing, when their whole career has been about, look at my tits. You can't have it both ways. You understand what I'm saying, Michael? You cannot have it both ways.
Jimmy,
you can't parade around. You can't parade around your tits in your ass and then act holier than thou when somebody's like, wow, you're hot. How dare you?
Well, no, that's under the guise of I can dress the way I want to dress.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to be leered at if I want to dress a certain way.
Well, you know something? If you're hot and you know it, and you go outside in a thong and you know you're hot, do not be surprised if you've got guys trying to hit on you. Okay, we're still animals at the end of the day. We're still mammals.
Dude, but here's the
Nature
thing.
is still there.
I was thinking about that.
You know?
You're at a
Cut it
point
out.
now. You're at a point now, dude, that it's like like if you were a young man and I was a young man and we were single. You know how hard and if you have a decent job, you know how hard it is to probably date because you don't know who you're offending by even saying, "Hey, I think you're pretty. Let's go for a date."
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, uh-oh.
I do know what you're saying because I work with a couple of younger guys at the liquor store, and they have challenges, man. They got a lot to deal with that we didn't have to deal with. You know, they really do. I feel bad for them in a way, you know, because there's so many nut jobs out there, and relationships are now built off devices. They're really not face to face. Everything is just it's because
well, no, you see the device allows you to be free, and then all of a sudden, no, but listen, here's the theory.
Yeah.
You know, I get to know the person and I get to really know them. And then when I finally meet them, I know everything about it. But my point is, you don't really know who that person is, you clown, you idiot, you moron,
not at all.
You jerk.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, not at all.
I just thought to myself, if I was single and I went to the bar, I met my wife at a bar, right? It was a dance club. And if I'm the man I am now, and I was there now and I was single, I would never even have spoken to her. I would never have spoken to her.
Changes.
No, I would. I could tell you right now, I would never have spoken to her.
Right. Well, here's the other thing, too, nowadays. Why would you go to a bar when you could just sit in your house and play with your device?
Well,
not too many people go out. I mean, if they do
I understand your point, Jimmy. I get it.
You know?
But you know, again, here we go. This guy's an icon. He built his life. He built his career. And let's be quite honest, Jimmy. You've been around these wrestlers. We've discussed this before, too.
Yeah.
Honestly, wouldn't they take you for every dime you had if you were willing to give it up because you were a sucker?
Yeah, they would. Everybody's working everybody. I mean,
they would take you for every piece of clothing you have, your car, your house.
Absolutely.
They would do it all.
And they're mad when the people who made them wealthy want to give their opinion about the business.
But here's my question then, Jimmy. If you're in this business as a promoter like Vince was, or Jim Crockett, or Vern Gagne, and you know this is the type of people you're dealing with,
right?
Wouldn't you act a certain way, maybe like Vince did,
right?
In certain situations,
yeah, because you want to be the fucker, not the fucked.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it.
Let's talk some positives on it, and then we'll get into the errors. The positives, I thought, were they opened up one called Screwjob. So they start with the original Screwjob with Wendy Richter. And I was like, wow, man. I started thinking, because there was one point where they had like Stand Back was on, and all the wrestlers are faking playing music, whatever else. And I was counting like they were on our show, they were on our show, they were on our show. And like I saw Brunzell playing the saxophone, and I felt like saying, man, I should have asked Brunzell about that scene. But it was like the positive good stuff is wrestling is good. It can make you feel good. Like it can make you forget your problems. You know what I mean?
Right. Just like baseball or other sports or a good show that you like to watch. Of course. I agree.
And you want to watch a show. And before we get off, I'll say this last thing. And this is the biggest problem I have is everybody's like, well, thank God Vince is gone because wrestling sucked and Triple H has changed it. Listen, man, people get old. They get tired. They could be as strong as an ox like Vince has been his whole life. Sooner or later, the young lion takes over. Vince, no matter how much he loved the WWE, he lost his edge. He's old. It happens to all of us. If it's going to happen to you, you're going to have a job, and there'll be a younger guy or woman that's going to come in and take it from you because you know
I've already done
it happens.
that horseshit. Yeah,
it's facts, right? It's not even horseshit. It's facts.
Yeah, no, it's horseshit.
Your body gets older and your brain gets older. Both get older. You're not quite as quick as you used to be. You're not quite as sharp as you used to be. And then eventually, you know, so it's like Vince, you know, Vince wasn't a genius. Oh, let me ask you this one. Here's the best one, too. LaGreca says on this whole thing, he was screaming about it, right? That they were going into WCW.
Wonder where we got that from, by the way. His approach.
That's a whole nother issue. But anyway.
Yeah, we know all about. You know what, though? That's not big enough. Who cares? Go ahead.
So he goes into, like, WCW, and at some point, Vince is like belly aching that they're stealing all his wrestlers, right? This is facts. Vince was doing it, right? So LaGreca is screaming about the fact that that's what Vince did to all the other territories, which is true. But the one thing that people don't listen to, Vince says in this docuseries, he goes, what I say and what I think are two different things.
Right.
So you got to present your way like a baby. Right, I'm a baby. Right. I'm mad. You're doing this. Woe is me. Be a martyr, right? Help me, help me, help me. In his mind, he's thinking, "Hey, this is business. This is what it's built on. Right. Dog eat dog." But people don't listen to it. They listen to what they want to listen to.
Right. That's what we do. We grab whatever works for our little window and we run with it. We amplify it. We magnify it. And we bitch about it. It's very annoying to me, dude. I got to admit, I sometimes pray for every cell phone to just break down and every computer to break down, and we're forced to all talk to each other again instead of reading about gossip. And you know, the good book warns about gossip, and that's all we have nowadays. It's just gossip overload, you know. But at least we're trying to examine at the full sphere rather than this is my idea, this is my agenda, and I'm just going to beat it to death, you know.
All right, well, let's get into the main subjects, dude.
Let's go through we're an hour in.
I know. This was a long conversation. Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right. The golden era, right? That's the first era recognized. Now, I read somewhere where they called something the Sammartino era. Oh, no, the Capital Entertainment era. I guess was Vince McMahon Senior. But it starts with the golden era, right? So talk to me about the golden era. And what in all the eras that we've seen, where does the golden era stand?
Well, I mean, it's just really if you're just going from the golden era on, the golden era is still the most important era because it's where WrestleMania is created. It's where wrestling launches into a much bigger stratosphere. You have the MTV connection. You have Hogan becoming Hogan. What is this like from, I would say, 85 to 92, but the beginnings are more like 83, 84 to 92 or so that you have the golden age. The golden age gave us so many greats. It gave us Piper. It gave us Savage. It gave us DiBiase. It gave us so many greats. And WrestleMania was established. If you don't have those early years, you know, I guess the golden era, the first big time over-the-top entertainer in Super Bowl history is Joe Namath. You know, without Joe Namath, you don't have all those Super Bowls that follow. So, I mean, the golden era is still the most important if you're going forward from the golden era on. I still would say without a beginning, how can you have a middle and an end? So that beginning was just so great, and the Hulkamania was so great, and WrestleMania was so great, and pay-per-views became a household thing. It became big business.
By the way, they got the golden era from 82 to 93.
That's fair. I mean, you know, there were aspects of it. Basically, the moment Hogan appears in Rocky III, wrestling is now taking another step because you didn't have that before.
The funny thing, though, Jimmy, is I remember it like that. I remember it being that long. Here's the tricky part. The next era is the new generation era, which they only mark from 93 to 97. Talk to me about the new generation era.
Well, it's when it was the changing of the guard. I mean, you're talking about Bret Hart. You're talking about Shawn Michaels. Vince was starting to struggle, obviously. And that goes back to what do we say over and over again, Mike? That Bret Hart And even more so, Shawn Michaels. It might not be a popular thing, but they weren't a draw compared to what Hogan was doing in his prime. Wrestling was hurting. It was actually
And by
starting
the
to
way,
hurt.
did Bret Hart, in your opinion, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels take enhancing drugs?
Oh, stop it. Of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
stop it. Anything. Just because they were great wrestlers. Shut up. You know, absolutely. The new era, quite honestly, I did not care for, Mike. I was like, I thought it was pretty crappy myself.
Well, I got to tell you, like, I watched it, right? I mean, I watched
it too.
But yeah, it was,
nowhere near as
you know,
good as,
again,
like, you know.
not to be disrespectful
Listen,
for like
what-
Doink the Clown or Duke
Yeah.
the Dumpster
I mean-
Drosy, right?
To me, the moment Warrior pins Hogan, to me, that age is over. The real beautiful age is over because Warrior's now pinned Hogan, and after that, Hogan was never the same in WWF after that. Let's be honest here. He wasn't. He might have gone on to make
Well,
yeah,
that's what I mean. You're an anti. You didn't like that. You didn't like that, right?
Was I invested? No, it's not that I'm anti. If you really look at it, Hogan at WrestleMania 6 is still Hogan, and Warrior is there. Hogan puts him over, did the right thing. It's fine. But after that, we were done with Hulkamania. We had to sit through WrestleMania 7 with Slaughter. I didn't care. You could tell me you did. I didn't care. Okay? WrestleMania 8, Hogan ain't even there. I think it's Sid, rest in peace. WrestleMania 9, he's crashing the party with Yokozuna. Nobody wants to fucking see that. All right. So to me, the golden age was when Hogan ended, was the moment Warrior pinned him, and I watched everyone in the room happy except for me. Because I felt that that was instant gratification and that Warrior wasn't going to be able to carry the company. And everyone looked at me, yeah, no wonder I wound up with a show, right, Mike? I'm thinking that back then. And everybody's looking at me. Are you kidding me? This is not the guy. And Hogan is still worth more in his little toe than Warrior will ever be. And I was right, because Hogan went on to do the NWO and changed the business again. I was right. The end. So that to me was the golden age. The new age comes and I'm bored to tears. We got stupid over-the-top characters. Poor Mantar, our poor buddy Mike, who was built as big as a house.
By the way, he's in that docu-series, because when they're talking about the new generation, he comes out of the thing, yeah.
Of course he does. Of course he does. The new age stuff sucked. All right, and Bret Hart, I was not into.
Let me ask you a question on that. Do you think Vince lost his edge at that point, or do you think? Wait, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Hold on. Here's my thought.
Go ahead.
Do you think it's a case of, look, Vince can be a genius, right?
Yeah.
But there's a yin to a yang, and is it the fact that he lost Hogan? That he couldn't find his way. It took a long time for him to find his way without Hogan.
Vince was playing it safe in the shadow of the steroid trial. If I put the belt and feature smaller guys, they won't keep talking about this steroid shit.
But what about the gimmick stuff, like the plumber and the hockey player and all that nonsense?
He got too carried away with the cheese factor. Okay, it happened. He fixed it. It took a while to fix it, though. But he did.
All right, then 97 to 2002, which I thought it was longer than this, the Attitude Era.
No. Great. It was great stuff. But by the way, getting back to Bully Ray saying that he would wish that, you never know if there's going to be a title change. I don't wish for that, because do you remember how meaningless most of those title changes? Absolutely meaningless title changes. Meaningless.
It was every week. It was every week. It was ridiculous.
Those belts meant absolutely nothing. 1 week, Val Venus is holding our precious Intercontinental Championship. The next week is Joey Gunn. The next week is Jeff Jarrett. The next week is no. I don't want that. I don't need to be shocked that, oh wow, surprise title change. Blah 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 blah. By the way, you just fucked Braun Breaker, so screw that title change. But I'm sure you knew I felt that way anyway.
I will say this though.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was a real good strength of Vince's is he listens to everybody. and
Mhm.
he listened to Triple
Yeah.
H. Like the Triple H brings the point up where Stone Cold ends up winning winning King of the Ring, where it was his spot and he was
Mhm.
being punished for the
Mhm.
curtain call. But he said to Vince, he
Mhm.
goes, "But you're missing it, Vince. Do you hear the crowd out there? That's the hottest they've ever
Right.
been because of that." And Vince goes, "You're right,
Right.
but it's not that
Right.
time." So he goes, "Eat your
Right.
shit and like it." And that was it.
Right.
And then
Right.
Shawn, Triple H started showing him the way. They started showing
Mhm.
him that this is the new
Mhm.
way to go, right?
Yeah.
And and then
Yeah.
Bischoff was basically
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, he took my shit and he ran off with it." And I was thinking to myself, "Well,
Mhm.
Bischoff, you took the NWO from New Japan, so it's like,
That's
everybody
right.
takes from everybody. It's who does it better, right? It's
It's a
who does it
hand-me-down.
better."
Jerry Garcia nailed it, man. It's a hand-me-down.
It's funny
He
how
nailed
we
it.
come full circle. Then you get the
Yep.
Ruthless Aggression, 2002 to 2008.
Mhm.
This is
Uh,
Cena's time.
yeah. I mean, that's to me that was the bad part of it, but it's also the great part of it because the next great, face of WWE is being established. I hated it, but I loved a lot of what happened in 2002 to 2008. You had, unfortunately, Benoit. That's very unfortunate. But you had wrestling was coming back a little bit to the forefront. Great wrestling going on. Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Chris
Do you
Jericho.
believe do you believe
There
what
was
Kevin Nash said when they put the belts on Guerrero and Benoit, that destroyed wrestling at that point?
no. I don't agree with that. I don't think that destroyed wrestling at all. What really kicked wrestling in the nuts was what Benoit the asshole did. But
Right.
but no, no, not at all. I thought it was awesome when Eddie won the title. I thought it was awesome when Chris won the title.
But some way
Sadly enough.
they took that Benoit shit and they turned it right around on Vince. Somehow it's Vince's problem, right?
Well, like I said before, Vince falls into that Alex Rodriguez category or whatever. He's just so fucking hated that by certain people that he's going to get the blame for, the hurricane that's happening. This is
Do you
Vince's
think
fault.
do
You
you
haven't
think
heard?
he's hated because of the character he portrayed and people just can't
No,
decipher
no,
the
no,
two?
no, 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 no. The ones that hate Vince McMahon, because we know a few, obviously. We go back from the very beginning of this show to people who hate Vince McMahon. They hate him for him. They think they know him. You understand? And isn't that the whole folly of all of this, Mike? Isn't this what we laugh about? We don't fucking know him, but they
Right.
do. They know him. They know him. I don't know him, and I don't think they do either. He's just an easy target that they've learned to hate. Kind of like the presidential candidate that's been shot at twice recently. You know, he just falls into that category. You hate him. You hate him. Doesn't matter what he does.
So then you fall into the PG era, 2008 to 2013, where the
Right.
pipe bomb came out of this era, which that means it can't
Right.
be all that bad.
Right, isn't that weird? Because the PG era to me was kind of lame. It is kind of funny that a CM Punk, a cutting edge guy like that, is one of the major highlights of the PG-13 era. But again, he didn't curse or anything, so I guess that promo is PG-13. How weird is that? Um, not
That
a
was
big
weird.
fan of the PG-13 thing. I got to admit, like you probably have more respect for guys like Edge than I do. I never bought into Edge being a champion. I never did. Do I accept it now when I see him? Yeah, I go, yeah, he's world heavyweight championship stuff. I get all of that, but I never bought into that. There was a lot of guys being pushed that I was not really that fond of. It's a blasé time period to me outside of Punk and Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan changed everything there. Daniel Bryan was really the first wrestler that the fans were going to override everything. No, we don't
Right.
want it like that. Yeah. Wait, yeet. You see what I'm doing here? There's a connection. There's a connection to that shit. I'm the star of the show. I'm the fan. I get what I want. And if I don't get it, I'm going to get very loud about it. So
And
that
that
really
puts
kind of starts with Daniel Bryan. So.
and that puts us into the reality era, 2013 to 2016. This is where social media is becoming a major force, and the fans get more control over the storylines.
Yeah, I'm not a
This
fan.
is, but the Shield was born in the
Right,
reality
Shield
era.
was born because the Shield was born out of CM Punk's idea and Vince McMahon loving it. That was but and what were the fans doing? Bitching and complaining about Roman. Let the bitching begin. Oh, Roman Reigns. I liked Roman Reigns from day one. I'm so happy that I could say that. You know what I mean? It's just like, nope, I was a fan of Roman
Absolutely,
Reigns
dude.
from
You know,
day fucking
I'll
one.
say it again.
You
That
know?
picture, I have a picture of Sasha Banks and Roman Reigns. That
Yeah.
Roman Reigns picture we took. We took
Right.
that picture. We didn't take it from a
Right.
magazine.
Right.
We were at an event. We took that
Right.
picture. And then
Right.
you got the 2016 to present, the new era.
No. This is where I saw something
Because I
else, and
remember you
yes,
saying something
it's
else,
the
and I was like, "That's
it's
weird."
the new era, 2016 to 21 or so. A lot of good shit happened during the new era. We got to see a lot of important stuff happen, especially the women's revolution, which I know you're a big fan of. So we had that happen during this. But they have another era called the Renaissance era, which is basically 21 to now, which is when Triple H has basically started to get his fingers into everything. And the Renaissance era is a whole nother story. What we're seeing now surpasses anything we've seen in quite a while. Would you agree with that? We just saw a great Cody
Well,
Rhodes, Roman Reigns promo. The WrestleManias have been
I'm
tremendous
I'm
these
I'm
past
gonna
few years.
assume you're correct, and this is an
Yeah,
updated, and there is the Renaissance era. So
right.
if that is the case, I would say the Renaissance era
Hmm.
is better than the golden era and uh not
Attitude.
the attitude era. Yes, sorry. The
I'm not ready to go anywhere near that yet because it's only a few years in. What I will say though is wrestling as a production, as a platform, as a production, as to having their shit together, and their showmanship and the machine is running cleaner than ever. I'll say that. Okay. As to where it's going to take us down the road, I don't know yet. But these last couple of years, you've got, why don't we look at it this way? Storyline? Oh my God. That bloodline storyline that's been happening for the last few
Listen,
years
you know
has
what?
been
To me, it does.
unbelievable.
To me, it's already in the
Production?
books, right?
Wow.
The
Yeah.
storyline, the production, like you're saying,
Yeah. Really on top.
again. You did
Yeah.
you did say something when I said watch that vignette. You said, "Look, Mike,
Hmm.
the one thing you have to give is they've got better stuff to work with now than they
They
did
do.
back then." And you're right.
They do.
You are right.
They do.
You're right.
Right. Right. But if they don't know what to do with it, then they've just got fancy stuff.
Right.
But that's what I
So
love about them. They know what to do with it.
agreed.
Could you imagine if the Beatles didn't know what to do with the studio with a day in the life?
There you
You know
go.
what I'm saying? Yeah, it takes money, machinery, and brains to know how to do the right thing. It's really that simple when you
All
really
right. Well,
think about it.
with that, guys, thank you for joining us again for 2 hours Thursday. Next week, Farrell will be, I don't know who Farrell's partner will be. I'll be watching from vacation. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back in studio with Farrell from Florida. And hopefully everything is okay at your home. I'm glad you're at least safe in Alabama right
I,
now
I
until you get
think I
back.
think so. I think so far.
But I want to
So
thank
far, so good.
everybody for joining us. And you want to send us out, Jimmy?
You've been watching Monty and the Pharaoh, and until next week from Sweet Home Alabama. This is not my sweet home, but hey, later.